Welcome to the Double Your Dojo podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and today I am with Michael Mertens. Michael Mertens is a multi-school operator, runs 5 locations out of Buffalo, New York, does about $3 million in revenue each year. And today he's going to discuss what it looks like to run a multi-school operation, what he looks forward to in his plan for 2023, and as a manager, what are the stats and KPIs he looks for in a successful school. So, Michael, thank you so much for coming on here today.
Hey, you're welcome. My pleasure. Happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit. I know that when we're talking right now, Buffalo just had almost, what was it, 5? You said 66 inches, something like that?
So yeah, over 5.5 feet of snow that happened over the course of about a day and a half.
Wow. So now that you're snowed in, you basically have no choice but to do a podcast with me. So I like that. No, you shoveled out. So, and I think you were in Florida before that, so you really missed the brunt of it, right?
I luckily did. My poor wife had to do a lot of shoveling while I was gone. Yeah.
I'm sure. So you owe a lot of favors.
That's right, indeed.
So thanks for coming on here today. Tell us a little bit about your martial arts background, how you got started. Give us a little some background about how you got to where you're at now.
So, since I'm a long time martial artist, that could be a long story, but I'll try to do it in the quick version. I've been training in Taekwondo, Olympic-style Taekwondo, for the past 40 years. Started with my original instructor in Syracuse, New York. Was a black belt instructor and a competitor, competed on the national level, was up there, but not up there enough, to make it to a national team type of level. And so, went away to Cornell University, competed as a member of the Cornell University team. When I graduated from Cornell, which is somewhat notable, Ivy League University, never interviewed for another job, never had another job, went straight into running Taekwondo schools. My grandmaster asked about us moving to a larger city. And so 30 years ago, he and I moved to Buffalo, New York from Syracuse, New York, and proceeded to open 5 schools.
Very cool. So you never had another job besides martial arts?
I've never had another job. I've only done, my father was a painting contractor and used to make me paint for the first few summers. And then I found a way to teach at a Parks and Recreation program and teach Taekwondo during the summer as well, besides teaching at the dojang. So this is my only professional career. Yeah.
So how did your family feel about that? Like, your dad has a painting company. You're like, okay, I want to be involved in martial arts full time. Just like, what did they say when you were doing that?
I am extremely thankful, grateful, and lucky that I had their unconditional support. Luckily, my parents both believed, and actually, I'm the only one with a 4-year college degree. My parents were, my mom had no college experience. My father had a couple of years college experience. But they were supportive of, hey, whatever you do, if you're passionate about it, you do it to the best of your ability. We're going to be proud of you. And so they knew how I felt about Taekwondo. To be honest, they also knew how Grandmaster Chung felt about me, or how motivated and forward-thinking he was. And so, I kind of hitched my cart to his vision, and graduated from, again, an Ivy League school without ever working another career. Went right into martial.
So when you were young, did you see like the vision of, okay, I'm going to work in this for my life, like my whole life? Or was this like, oh, I'll do this now because that's the momentum that life has taken me to?
If I really honestly think about it, I didn't think about it that deeply at the time. I can say, because I had already worked in the dojang as a teenager, and I went to Cornell studying industrial labor relations, and we were talking about organizational behavior and organizational culture. Dr. Blanchard, who's the author of The 1 Minute Manager, was one of my professors. And so, I was, really immersed in this concept of what it took to build a functioning organization, a team of motivated people. And so I was thinking about those concepts and applying them to the martial art business while I was in school. So maybe I was kind of eager to get going with this experiment, as soon as I graduated. And thankfully, we in a way struck oil, and we had a very strong success from the very beginning. That, hey, a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, when I was checking in with my classmates, I was, as financially successful, or, making as big an impact as they were in what they were doing. So yeah, there was no reason to change course.
So what age were you finally making like good money? And what is that amount for that age that was like, oh wow, I'm actually doing great?
I mean, you have to know that we're talking about going back to, right? For me, I graduated college in 1992.
Yeah.
And so at that time, right? Okay, my first goal of, okay, when am I going to make $50,000, right? And do that,
Yeah.
a few years after college. And okay, when am I going to, make six figures, right? And did that maybe within the first, I don't really remember exactly, but maybe, 6, 7 years later, okay, now I'm making six figures. Am I going to be able to have a home being a Taekwondo instructor? And I was. Am I going to be able to be married and have kids? And I was. So at all the checkpoints of life, I guess, I don't know if people remember the baseball quote from one of the home run hitters saying, baseball has been very, very good to me, but Taekwondo has been very, very good to me. I've enjoyed, a very nice lifestyle doing something I'm passionate about and something that I think, puts good into the world.
So when did you go from like Taekwondo instructor to like school owner operator? Like when did that happen? And like who gave you that opportunity?
So when we opened our schools here in Buffalo, my teacher is Grandmaster Sun Chong. Grandmaster Sun Chong, phenomenal credentials in the field, former Korean national champion, former, U.S. national team coach. So we came to Buffalo. He had a vision of, at that time, even though it's a pretty big city, there was not really, very many martial arts schools here or any successfully run martial arts schools here. So we opened school number one, and I think that's around 1993. 2.5 years later, opened the second school. 2.5 years later, opened the third school. And then after another 5 years or so, he asked me, or I, we kind of came upon it together. Hey, how about we do the next school together? And so we proceeded to open school number four. School number
So did
four.
you invest? Did you invest in money in that in the opening, or how did that work?
I did. What we did, which is kind of, we think the most straightforward way of doing things. Okay, let's do a new location. And, he put in 50% of the money and I put in 50% of the money. And then we grew that location. I'm happy to say that location was busting at the seams. So 5 years later, we actually built a building together, a 10,000 square foot building, and moved that school over. And then it was kind of a long time. I think it was another 8 or 10 years. We opened school number 5 together. So at that point, I co-owned 2 locations, and I was executive director or manager for other 3 locations. But so I've been involved in the pluses and minuses, the challenges, the ups and downs of running multiple schools for a pretty long time, decades at this point.
So for most school owners, and for me too, like I've never built my own building, like, purchase building, lease building, right? But I never built it. So was that like a dream of yours? Like, hey, I want to have like the most beautiful or perfect martial arts school that I built from scratch, and like how did what did that look like, that process?
Well, I guess I skipped over in mentioning it that Grandmaster Chung had already by that time built so we opened school number 1, school number 2, school number 3, school number 4, built a building for school number 1. And then I, with Grandmaster Chung, built a building for school number 4. So in a way, I was following in his footsteps. Again, there's a lot of lessons to be learned by building a building. They were both, 10,000 square foot facilities. They were both, $1 million projects. It almost killed me at the time. And I say not financially, but there's a lot of headache in dealing with contractors and dealing with the bank and a lot of paperwork and things. But it does, the comment that our architect said to us is, hey, I'm going to make this a landmark. We're going to make a building that's going to be a landmark, and that we think contributed to the, being a more high profile business in the community that gave us a competitive advantage. I know in my one area where we opened our 4th building or built our 4th school's building, that a competitor moved in, opened a school in a small strip plaza, and they didn't last 5 years. Now, it could have been they had operational issues as well. But, if you had a choice, you say, okay, I can go over to that martial arts school in the little strip plaza, or I can go over to this one in this bigger, nicer facility. It seemed that gave us a competitive advantage there as well. But, a lot of, that's a whole podcast unto itself, I'm sure, getting ready financially, to qualify for a building, dealing with contractors, dealing with the whole process. Again, very, very, very stressful. But I guess now, looking back 10 years later, it's certainly nice to have the investment and the equity in the building, that happens as a result.
So you mentioned like learned a lot of lessons about building a building from scratch and about, being $1 million build out, which is just stressful having that much money out there. Right. And like, obviously it's not like you have experience in construction or architecture. So you're depending on all these people giving them money and hope it works out. So what, if someone was thinking about building a lesson from scratch or a building from scratch, what lessons did you learn that you feel like could actually help them?
Well, I don't know if you've ever commented on this book recently, but there's a book called Who Not How, right? And so, right, I am not a guy that can swing a hammer. I am not a guy that's a handy guy around the house. And here we are having this $1 million project. So the first who, of course, was the architect. And, we interviewed multiple architects to find somebody that we felt like shared our vision, that could understand what we were trying to do. You have to have your banker on your team that you feel like is going to go to bat for you. We're trying to get the project financed. And then, of course, you got to have a great staff, because your staff has to keep things running, because you'd be surprised how many hours of meetings or site visits or whatever stuff you're doing that takes you away from the daily operation of the school that you're trying to fund this building with. So that was something that was important. And I would say you're going to need to be extremely organized, whether it's for the bank or for the contractors. And I used to call it the checklist that would get unchecked, because the carpet guys would say, oh, we'll be there Tuesday and we're going to do the lobby on Tuesday, right? But they wouldn't be there on Tuesday. And though, you had said, oh, that's going to be checked off. And then I can have the painters come in because the floors will be done. Or I think I got that in reverse order. But, the checklist would keep coming unchecked. So you're just not going to be able to trust that everybody's going to do everything when they were supposed to do it, the way they were supposed to do it. Daily site visits. We have 5 locations, and every time we've had a build out or a redo of a location, I always learn from Grandmaster Strong. No, you must go there every day. You must see what's going on. Even if you don't know anything about construction, you know what you want to have happen, right? And so construction guys are building a wall, or the construction guys are building a front desk. They're not actually thinking about, oh, the angle of the front desk is a little off for, students walking by and going into the classroom or whatever. I mean, a famous story that we told our staff is we had built bleacher style seating. We went there, we sat down in it, and Grandmaster Strong said, it's 2 inches too high, and it was 2 inches too high, and it was just a little bit too uncomfortably high to sit in properly. And we had them build it again, the attention to detail of the student experience, that's the number one thing that we're focusing on. So whether you're a construction guy or not, whether you know about wiring and electric and things, you just keep envisioning, what's a day in the life of my students going to be like? What's it going to be like when they walk through here? What's the women's locker room? Is it private enough on the angle when they walk in? What's the comfort for the parents? So the idea of you're building this dojang for all stakeholders, right? For all participants, for the parents, for the students. And to keep walking through the facility, whether it's in a architectural drawing or as it's starting to come to life. And we most definitely, though it was costly, we weren't always afraid to make changes in the field, if we thought it was going to be better in the long run.
And I like what you said about being there every day, because I think I would not do that unless you just said that. Right? I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, they're just gonna hit some nails and put in some carpet. Like, I'll go there once a week and see what's up, right? But I guess like probably just you being there holds them accountable too. Like, oh, the owner's here watching, right?
Yeah, they don't. The general contractor doesn't want you there, right? They want to manage the project, but someone told me a long time ago the phrase again that you keep the experts on tap, not on top, right? And so all the years that I've been doing things, I have found a mistake by my accountant. I have found a mistake by my attorney. I have found a mistake by our contractors. And again, they're very competent at what they do, but still, ultimately, they're working for me, or they're representing an outcome for me, or creating an outcome for me that I'm ultimately going to have to live with. So I have to, be double checking their work or be aware of their work. Can't put your head in the sand with any experts. Keep them on tap, not on top. I live by that phrase.
Very cool. So at what point do you think you went from like, okay, I'm a Taekwondo instructor to like, okay, I'm a manager or developer, operator? And like, how did you deal with that? Because those are 2 very, very different positions.
They are. So, when we were a single school operation, I was doing everything every day that was necessary in the operation of the school, right? I was teaching classes or selling memberships. I was running special events. Hey, I was vacuuming the floor, right? I mean, those were what we did with one school. To be honest, once we opened a second school, I was doing the same thing, just I was at the second school. And, you know, I would also have some responsibility for managing the staff over at the first location. Once we got to 3 locations, I had a little bit more freedom because the quantity of staff that we had at each 3, I was really starting to use the title of executive director, and there would be certain times that I might not be in the school as much and doing these, but still pretty tied to school operation. Even when we had 4 locations, which is when I was a co-owner on the 4th location, I was still involved in daily operation quite a bit. What was a big turning point? The birth of my son, you know, and then family life. Because as we all know, our Taekwondo business, our martial art business has great hours if you want to play golf in the morning, if you want to work out in the morning, if you want to do all kinds of things in the morning and then go to your school in the evening. But once you have children, and particularly once you have school-age children, you start realizing, wait a second, I'm not around to be a part of their life, you know, when they come home from school. And so midway through about the operation of School 4, is when I really started to say, okay, I want every school staffed in a way that I'm not part of day-to-day operation. And thankfully, we have an incredible team that, okay, I've got masters and managers and part-time instructors in every location. So I don't say it in an arrogant way, but I just simply, I don't work the hours that our staff do. You know, for the most part, I have more of a 9-to-5 type of job at this point, doing staff meetings, doing marketing, doing systems development, and we have teams running all the schools. But I would think an owner would maybe, it's tough to pull that off with one school unless it's really a mega school. But if you get to 2 or 3 schools, I think you can start to get out of daily operation. And you know, some friend of mine calls it getting your head out of the blender, right? And being able to kind of look around and see the landscape and ask yourself, okay, how can we improve the overall system? But again, it takes great teammates and staff to, you know, make that a possibility in the first place.
So as you're growing your staff, like, I think everyone always has that challenge with the martial arts business lifestyle, right? Where it's like, okay, I have my son. How am I going to manage this business and have my son who might have baseball practice or, you know, a piano recital? So how do you, and obviously eventually you build up staff so you didn't have to, you know, miss those things, or you create your own schedule that's more morning focused. So I guess, how do you recruit staff members who do have kids? Because I'm sure you across your location, I'm sure a lot of them do, right? So how do you like almost like set it up for them where like they can still have a lifestyle they want, even if they have kids, and still be able to thrive?
Yeah, for us, I would say that has been, you know, not as much. You know, we have for 5 locations, full timers right now is about, we just changed. So I think we have 14 full timers. So that's, you know, 2 or 3 full timers per location, depending on the location. And then we have about 45 or 50. It kind of fluctuates, part timers. For us and the way that we operate, the majority of our staff are teens and college age students without families. We've got just a couple full timers that have families, and to be honest, hey, you know, our work hours, just like some restaurant people or whatever, aren't as conducive, are a little more challenging for family. We do try to put some good work conditions in place. I can talk about other benefits later on, but our full-time staff have 30 days of PTO, right? I mean, that's paid time off. So they essentially work 11 months out of 12 because they get 20 days of PTO that they can choose randomly. They can use for vacation or sick days or travel or whatever. They get another 10, you know, we have a Christmas Eve to New Year's Eve or New Year's Day break. We've got a Thanksgiving break. We close for Memorial Day, for Labor Day. We try, don't always succeed, we try not to have them have to do the daytime class, our lunchtime class, so that they can be there just in the evening time. So we try to find ways for the family members or the staff with families to maximize that time. But that is a challenge. That's a challenge for our industry as a whole, as you know.
Yeah. So for people who depend on teenagers or, you know, young 20s or 20 somethings, I think the fear that people have is, okay, I'm going to train this person, they're going to go get another job, right? Or they're going to go to college. So how do you keep or maybe they're not mature enough to like even handle a martial arts job because it's their first job, right? Maybe they were there as a teenager and they grew up and that's the only thing they know. They've never been in a professional setting before.
Right.
So do you have like high turnover rate, or how do you keep these people?
Thankfully, our turnover rate is very, very low, and I guess some of it is, is obviously by design. I would say this: most people, most of martial arts school owners, are way, 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 way. I'll do even one more way under training their part-time staff. So for us, when we talk about, what does it mean to be a part-time staff member at World Class Taekwondo? Well, for us, it means that we're going to hand select you. You can't volunteer to be on the staff. We don't want volunteers. We want paid staff members, because then we can have expectations of them and give them the correct feedback. We don't have to worry about. We can still be nice, but we don't have to worry about stepping on toes and hurting someone's feelings. That's volunteering. We don't use volunteers. You want to be a leadership team member, or you want to start being a member of our staff, we have video training, including exams that they have to watch and take in order to be a member of our team. In fact, we have hours of video training and exams that they have to take as they go through different levels of becoming a staff member. I realized that I didn't want to be running around to all different locations like a maniac every time we hired somebody new. So we have a series of 10 videos that somebody watches. They're like, 6 to 7 minutes long for one level of staff. They take the exam. I get an email of their answers. They progress to the next level of staff. They watch the next series of videos. They take the next exam. So number one, we have organizational consistency because we do those videos and those exams. Number two, every one of our locations has a weekly staff meeting. For the part-time staff I'm talking about, the part-time staff are paid to be there, and the agenda is designed in ahead of time. Actually, we'll be designing the agendas for the whole next year about what martial art curriculum we're going to cover, what teaching tips we're going to cover. And we have that meeting every single week, 50 weeks a year. So we train the heck out of our part-time staff. I was trying to look for it. Someone had just sent me their staff to come and observe at our location, a friend of mine from Connecticut. And when I asked him, how did your staff enjoy visiting with us? One of the things that he said was they were amazed by how active and on point the teenage staff were. They came in and they just watched a regular Greenbelt class, and there's a 15-year-old teaching 8 kids over here and a 16-year-old teaching 10 kids over here, and the same over there and same over there. And those kids, I guess, that we're teaching, they were black belts, they were second dans, maybe even third dan. Their voice tone, their mannerisms were all great. The biggest point I will say is people always ask us, where did you find these people? I'll tell them we didn't find them, we trained them, right? We found good raw material, and then we trained them. So I would say for most of your listeners and most martial arts school owners, they should be tripling the amount of time and effort and attention to detail that they put into staff development. And it actually, not only do you produce better staff members, but you actually produce more motivated and committed staff members, because people want to be a part of something where they're learning and they're developing, right? And so if you actually say, I don't want to bother them too much, I don't want to give them extra meetings, I don't want to give them extra work, you're actually creating the wrong thing. People get bored and they're like, I'm not learning anything, I'm not getting any better. It's the same job. So we have had teenagers grow up to not only be instructors and masters, but we have, I don't know if we talked about that, sir. We have 30 former staff who own their own schools now, right? 30 former staff who learned on our mats how to teach and how to be instructors now own their own schools all over the country. So, we've created a career path that keeps people motivated to stay with us.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love that, like you said, okay, whatever you're doing right now, triple it, right? So obviously you're investing a lot of time, but I'm sure also a lot of money too in staff training. Like you pay them to be there for the training, right? Like you're not just like, come as a volunteer position, but like, hey, I'm actually paying you to be here.
That's right. Simply, you can have, and that ends up flowing into your enrollment process, right? Because when we're taking even a prospective student on the tour of the school and we gesture towards the mat or we show them the mat, we say, okay, we do team teach all of our classes so that students get better to personal attention. We have a lower student to teacher ratio. We don't use any volunteers. All the instructors you see out there are paid staff members, which is why we have such great consistency in our instruction at all of our locations, right? And I'll even mention something else that we do that we put into our system, which is, hey, academic schools have in-service days or staff development days. So we started modeling that. And we have a day or two per year where we close down, and the purpose of that day is to not have classes, but to have a meeting with all 5 location staff. We, again, pay them to be there. We pay for lunch, and we do additional staff training for them. And it's also a little bit of camaraderie and motivation and, vision sharing. But again, you invest in your staff. Another phrase I think that my team is used to hearing pretty regularly as being a staff leader is, right, we take care of the people who take care of the people, right? And so if you want staff to be patient, encouraging, motivating, kind, and caring, well, you've got to make sure that you're being that way with your staff members, right? That's another thing is a lot of people are so tough on their staff. Well, if staff are disgruntled or frustrated or anxious or afraid or, upset, one way or another, that's going to come out when they're servicing people, right? That they're in a bad mood or whatever. And how many of us have been in a business and an employee of the business is bad mouthing the business, right? What a terrible thing that is, to ever have that happen. And we'd love to believe that never happens in our schools. Well, ultimately, it's going to be because they really feel like they're being well taken care of. So, yes, sir.
So now that obviously you're more of like a developer, right? Now you develop schools, you make sure the staff training is correct. Like, what do you look at daily to make sure your schools are going in the right direction? Like, what does your day-to-day look like?
So, I try to do my days like almost theme. For me personally, I have more like theme days, right? So Monday is more like a systems development day. I have a standing meeting with my who she happens to be one of my business partners, but she's also our HQ support person. So we have a standing meeting every Monday. I check in on all the projects that she's got going on, and that's like a 1.5 hour meeting every Monday morning. Then I personally will be working more likely on systems things on Monday, and that could be everything from, working on what our pricing is going to be for 2023 to, are we going to, again, create some more staff development type of materials. Tuesday is another big meeting day. Our full-time staff of all 5 locations always gets together on Tuesdays for 2.5 hours. It's role play training, it's stat review, it's operational preparation for special events or different things. And then it is, of course, physical training too, right? We want to sweat together as a team. By the way, we do that on Tuesday because, which everybody would say, shouldn't the first meeting of the week be on a Monday? Well, hey, 7 days is 7 days no matter what. And if you have, very limited days off, like Sundays off, right? Then starting Monday morning at 9 a.m. kind of cuts into that weekend a little bit. So we said, okay, let's start doing it on Tuesdays. And so people feel like their weekend's a little bit longer. And then second, because once in a while I travel or Grandmaster Chung would travel, and we didn't want to say, meetings canceled, we're out of town. Meetings canceled, we're out of town. So in 50 meetings a year, we would easily make 48 of them, 49 of them, right? Again, getting together with our people is always been a priority. So Tuesday is a lot of staff training and staff time. Wednesday, again, I tend to do a little bit more marketing work. Thursday, I run an organization called Taekwondo Professionals, so I consult other martial arts schools around the country. I do my own Zoom call or podcast for them on Thursdays. And then Fridays, to be honest, if I've done my job right, by Fridays, I can have a little bit more of a downtime, have lunch with my wife, and have packed in the week pretty well. Saturdays, we'll have special events. I don't need to attend, most of them except our bigger ones like a tournament or such. And Saturdays and Sundays, my work stuff is R&D. I'll be watching other people's podcasts. I'll be watching other people's materials and trying to get new ideas for the week ahead.
Well, I love your themes and the fact you put everything into buckets, like Monday is this, Tuesday is this, Wednesday is this. So you kind of like stay focused. And that was actually something I was talking about with my team literally today in a meeting, because I'm working on, even for myself, I think we could all be better in terms of productivity, right?
Indeed.
So
yes,
for us, it's like, okay, if you're going to answer emails, I don't want you to answer emails the entire day, right? Have a bucket. I'm going to answer emails at this time. I'm going to answer emails at this time, like morning and evening, and that's it, right? Because if you get distracted and like you're trying to do like answer emails and you're trying to do like marketing and you're trying to like plan a special event, and you go back and forth, like the brain is just not as efficient, right? So you need to have buckets and themes, and we kind of do the same things with our meeting. Like we do meetings on Mondays, so but for us, like Monday is like marketing. Tuesday is like usually like oh my gosh, what are we doing on Tuesdays? Tuesday is usually like like curriculum. Wednesday will be like something like the sales training, and Thursday will be actual like martial arts training we do together, and we do Friday off. That's like kind of our day. So it's kind of a little bit reversed. But yeah, so that's how like we do it. And just like you said about the staff training, where it's like a longer time, where you have that couple days a year where you do like a really long training. We do that right after our belt promotions, where we'll have like a 2 to 3 hour training where they learn everything that they're going to learn, that the student's going to learn over the next testing cycle. So they get like a sneak peek of what's coming ahead, and then we get food for them afterwards. And it's like a really fun, like good event where they get to see like peek behind the curtain and know what's going to happen. And they even know what's going to happen in their class, or the class they're actually taking as a student. So I always think like that's really cool for them, and they feel like a bigger part of it because they're seeing what's going to happen in the future, right? So going forward with you, now that like there's like whispers of like recession, right? And who knows what's going to happen to the economy? I have no idea. You have no idea, and people claim they have an idea, but who actually knows? So, what are you preparing for your school to make sure your school is set up the right way, or are you doing anything to prepare for that?
So, having been in this industry, right? I've been a martial artist for 40 years, but I guess I've been in the industry as a career for 30. Means that I have, in fact, experienced, some economic downturns as part of it, right? And I think one of the more notable ones that I remember, would have been like the 2008, 2009 type of time when everyone was saying, oh, okay, housing market crash and, all kinds of different problems going on. And we had actually a very, very robust set of years during that time. So I'd say a few different things. First, from the operational point of view, I will rely on someone who's far more financially successful and knowledgeable than me, and that's Warren Buffett. And the quote from Warren Buffett, he said, someone was asking about a recession, and he said, you know what I would tell people to focus on? Running a really great business, right? That would be the key. If you run a really great business, and this is exactly his quote, I think, if I remember it right, he said, if you run a really great business, you're going to be okay. And so that's the first focus is going to be for our team. And as we start thinking about 2023, and I told them that exact story, and and we're looking at everything operationally. So when I say really great business, right, can our schools smell even better in 2023? Can we make sure that more staff are saying hello and goodbye in 2023? Can we make sure that we're sitting more on top of student progress and advancement in 2023? What can we add to our special events? It's a small thing, but we just had a tournament. And for our internal tournament, we had new ring stand banners designed and custom tablecloths designed. So it had more of that, I guess I'd say, Karate Kid type feeling, when you walked into the tournament, right? That's an investment in the student experience. So the first thing would be, because my staff have heard me say this, I don't know whether the economy is going to go up or down or sideways, but I know what we can control, and what we control is within our four walls and also between our two ears. And that's not a fuzzy thing. That's a practical thing to think about. What can we do on a daily basis that makes people say, if something was to have to go from our budget, we know it's not going to be our martial art classes. We got to keep that. Maybe we're going to get rid of Hulu, or we're going to get rid of Netflix, or we're going to get rid of going out, we're going to order out from food as much, but we're not going to cut our martial art classes because the experience is great, the community is great, the relationship is great. And in that way, we can overcome anything of the recession. And that also, a little reminder, which and which I know, the recessions can come, the recessions can be a factor, but for most of us running professional martial arts schools, we're actually catering to an affluent clientele that really is affected a little bit less, right? And I feel like it's terrible no matter what, but the affluent families, the six-figure earning families, still do have, right, the price of gas doesn't really affect them that much, right? The price of, groceries doesn't affect them that much, especially when it comes to their kids. So to me, if I wanted to be in a business that was more recession-proof, you say, well, how about a business that's catered to affluent people and it's related to their child's health and development? I think that's one of the businesses that's not going to be affected. Again, you still got to be a great business. You can't be lazy and say, oh, we're going to be good no matter what. We're going to work on it more. On the business side, I would just say that I would look to be aware of two things. The financial side, one would be, can I line up additional financial resources. We want to put in place lines of credit for each of our locations. So in case there's a little bit of a gap on any given month, right, finances aren't too tight. So again, that's where having a great relationship with your bank is important, to maybe get those lines of credit in place. And then if there are extra sources of revenue, whether it's turning up the apparel sale type of aspect, or equipment sales, or adding things like training camps or summer camps or whatever, those can be other options. So very much the attitude is, we don't stick our head in the sand and worry, or we wish, or don't know what's going to happen. What is it that we can do in our thinking? What is it that we can do in our daily operation? What is it we can do to be a little bit more proactive? And we're confident that we're going to be okay, because we will keep taking all the steps it takes to be okay, while not knowing exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's a great mindset. I think it's also important that, like, okay, you and I, like, we have that mindset. Probably don't have to be reminded as much, right? But our staff, they need to hear that too, right?
That's right.
If they're not hearing that from us, then they're just hearing the doomsday on the news, and like that's what they believe is happening. Then when someone doesn't roll, the economy's going bad, people don't want to spend money, right? So one of the things that I always appreciate is whenever I'm talking to someone like you, like I know we talk on the phone once every 4 or 5 months or something like that. We'll hop on Zoom, like, hey, what's going on with your schools? What's going on with mine? And one of the things that like successful school owners do is they network with other successful school owners. One of the things that like underperforming school owners do is they just compare themselves with other underperforming school owners, and like that becomes their belief system, right? Like, oh, people aren't spending money on martial arts. Oh, you can't charge more than $100 a month, or oh, no teenagers are reliable. I got to do everything by myself, right? And I think if more people like just change their circle. Because I know that if you and I had a conversation today and we were just talking on a podcast, I don't think recession would ever come up. Oh, how are you worried about recession hurting your business? Like, I would not bring that up. I don't think you would ever bring that up, right? We might talk about how we should prepare our staff, which I think is important, but we wouldn't be like trembling because of what might happen with the economy. We know that, like, hey, we just got to keep our head down and do what we need to do and make sure our business is performing at all levels.
Absolutely. So, yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I guess for you, I'm just curious, because you've been in the game so long, the martial arts game, how do you see the industry changing over the next 5 to 10 years? Do you feel like it's basically going to stay the same? Like, where do you see it going?
In the time I've been in the industry, the level of professionalism continues to rise. And by professionalism, I say, well, people are more aware that, the martial arts school I trained on, we trained with, we had carpet on the floor, right? And now I don't think anybody would open up a martial arts school with carpet on the floor. Mats are just a regular thing. I remember it was a big deal for us to, have a website. And now, of course, no one's going to open up a martial arts school without a website.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty amazing when we had our first app. And now, because of the different vendors that are out there, somebody can have an app, they can have a website, they can have a CRM, within the first weeks that they open a school. We custom built a CRM, because back in the day, there wasn't anything that really, did what we wanted to do. Now there's, lots of competitors out there that could do it. So the professionalism will continue to increase. The life balance issue continues to be at the forefront. Like you said, right? Schools that say, okay, we're only going to operate 5 days a week because it's better for our people. We're going to look at the wear and tear that we're going to have on our people. I think the opportunity continues to be strong because people continue to have children, and I think for the foreseeable future, always will. And those children need what we have. And again, adults as well. We're a family-oriented martial arts school, so we teach a lot of children and we teach a lot of parents. We don't teach as many 20 and 25-year-old type of men and women, the gym crowd. But I think we're going to continue to be needed. I think we will always continue to have to improve our daily experience, right? The amount of franchise businesses. Now there are franchise massage places, obviously, Massage Envy and such. That didn't exist, 10 years ago or 15 years ago. There are franchise opticians, franchise, dentists. So consistent operation, consistency, professionalism is what the consumer is getting used to seeing. And so we may have to make sure that you talked about measuring ourselves, right? I don't measure our customer experience against the other martial arts schools in town, because to be honest, it's not much of a competition. I measure us against, Disney. I measure us against the Apple Store. I want to measure us against, the best customer service experiences that people could have. And I think if people get that mindset, then as far as operating, they're in the right thing. And then as we talked about, I think for the staff of martial arts schools, the life balance factor is going to be continues to be something that we're looking at to see how can we get the best. Teaching martial arts is rewarding, but also people enjoying their personal life is rewarding too. So we've got to be more mindful of that going forward.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head there, because especially martial arts employees, I think, maybe 20 years ago, it was like, okay, well, you're going to get paid only minimum wage forever, and you have to be loyal to me as your instructor forever because I taught you. And, you can't go and do anything on your own. When I die, then you can take over, right? But now, we have to make sure that our people are taken care of, whether it's retirement benefits, health insurance, PTO, right? They need to have, a good lifestyle in the business, and people are demanding that, as they should. So we need to provide that in our martial arts schools, right?
Ultimately, your team, these great teenage staff that you have, or young college age staff that you have, there's a conversation that's going to happen with their parents, right? Mom, Dad, I love Taekwondo or I love martial arts and I want to do this as a career. And their parents are going to be, they can love their child, and so they're going to give them, their parent is going to give them the best advice they can in terms of supporting them. But they're going to ask them some questions too. Well, son, daughter, how are you expecting to live on what they're paying you, or what are the conditions, or what about compared to this? So you said it exactly a moment ago, sir, right? Our full-timers have health insurance. Our full-timers have a 401k. Our full-timers get PTO. Our full-timers have a staff development day. We are offering a real competitive opportunity, and it's kind of a chicken and egg type thing, because people say, oh, I can't afford to do that. Well, then you can't afford not to do it, because then you're going to just keep rotating through untrained staff, or the staff who are leaving, where we really don't have a whole lot of staff leave until they go to open their own school, which they do with our blessing. And so we have staff that stay with us, 5, 10, 15 years as staff members, and that saves us money, right? It saves us money to provide them with great conditions and to retain staff longer.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on here. And I just have one more question for you. I know we're the industry, or at least I think we have to improve our business practices as an industry. Like you said, compare ourselves to Disney, Apple, all those big time players, and really just sharpen our sword. But what about for you? What do you feel like your plan is for the next 5, 10 years? Where do you feel like you're going to open another 5? Do you feel like develop the 5 you're at? Where do you feel like you're going?
Well, as you said, it's been 40 years for me. I'm a little bit keyed in on a 50-year anniversary. I'd love to be there for the 40th year of our anniversary of our schools in Buffalo, and my 50th anniversary personally as a martial artist. And then, I may move on to other kinds of projects, and I'll let my team take it from here. I'm very focused over the next 10 years for trying to make our schools as solid as possible. Don't have a current motivation or current team members in place that I'm thinking about opening additional locations with, but I certainly don't rule it out. I still see, I guess there's painters or artists, you think, okay, they have a canvas and they put the paint on it and they're done. And yet there's people say, oh, I've been working on that painting for, I don't know, a year or 2 years or 3 years or whatever, because there's little touches or little things they want to do. I mean, I'm amazed at how big my list is every week and every year of all the things that I think we can improve better, So I'm still trying to follow that Warren Buffett thing. I think there's more things I can do to make this a really great business. And I wake up, someone said, hey, you seem to always be excited and motivated. And I say, you know what? It's because I'm always in pursuit, right? When you're in pursuit of a new relationship, you're excited. When you're in pursuit or getting ready for a new vacation, someplace new, you're always excited. I'm actually still finding new things about what we do to train our people better, to provide a better daily experience, to improve our curriculum, to run better special events. So I'm having fun and looking forward to the next 10 years. Even if we don't open another location, I think we can do what we do even better. And that to me, gets me up and excited every day.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on here. And if someone wanted to reach out to you because they had a question or just wanted support or whatever, how do they find you?
So my work email is director, DIRECTOR, at Buffalo, like our fine city and the home of the Buffalo Bills, director at Buffalo TKD, as in taekwondo.com. So director at buffalotkd.com. And if they happen to be a Taekwondo school, only Taekwondo, I love all martial arts, but I'm giving back to the martial art to change my life. So if they happen to be a Taekwondo school, they can also visit taekwondoprofessionals.com and learn a little bit more about what we do for schools there.
Cool. Thank you so much for being here,
Hey,
Michael.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you very much.